Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. It's presented by the Spiritual School of the Golden Rosy Cross. We are a contemporary initiation school, and our main goal is the dedication to the transformation of consciousness and life. Our talk today is titled The Cosmic Christ Connecting to the Light Field of the Universal Brotherhood. Who is the cosmic Christ, really? It's beyond religion, beyond doctrine, beyond everything you've been told about. And the answer might be the most liberating discovery in your life. So in the talk now, you will find out what this is all about. During the talk, you can already put your questions or comments right into the comment box in the chat box here on YouTube. And after the talk, we will try to answer them as far as possible. So with this, I would like to welcome today's presenters or speakers, Mary Rose and Netto.
Hello and welcome, everyone. So as Regina just shared, today we will explore the reality of the cosmic Christ, not just as a historical figure, but as something much deeper, a living reality that permeates just about everything. This basically invites us to move a little beyond the traditional way we think about Christ and to consider it as a universal principle of light, unity, and transformation. So today we'll look at a few things together. We will start by looking at the different ways we can understand Christ as a human being, as something within us, and as something much larger, a kind of universal field. Then we will explore what this cristic field actually is, a field of light and of universal brotherhood. From there, we will contrast that with our everyday experience, the world of our thoughts, emotions, and reactions. We'll see how this level of experience tends to divide everything into good and bad, right and wrong, and also why it becomes important to go beyond those opposites towards something deeper, a real source of unity. And finally, we'll touch on what it means, not just to understand this, but to actually enter into it and participate in this field of light. So before we begin, I'll reiterate again what Regina shared and remind everyone to jot down your questions as the presentation progresses, so we have plenty to address at the end of the presentation. So who is Christ? In the spiritual school, we define them as the universal divine radiation, the light of the world, a light that works within the human being to bring about inner transformation and the unity with the whole. Ordinarily, we often approach Christ from one angle or several angles, historical for one or religious. But the question is much deeper than that. Christ can be understood on multiple levels, not only historical or belief or living reality. Christ can be understood in several different layers. Let us begin by the first point. All the great spiritual beings made an immense sacrifice. Though they were liberated and capable of existing far beyond our comprehension, they chose to enter our world with all its limitation, immersing themselves in matter and linking their consciousness to our human experience. They did this to bring the possibility of liberation into the very fabric of life, a thread of light reaching into our blood, into each of us. We can say that liberation has little meaning unless it is lived, embodied, and felt at the deepest level of our being. This is what all great spiritual figures have done, and what the one we call Christ also fulfilled. This is the essence of universal teaching, a pure and all-encompassing wisdom that is both vast and deeply human. The great ones never avoided the weight of human limitation. Instead, they embraced it, showing that even from within our constraints, it is possible to begin to walk the path and to reach the summit of liberation. We recognize this not as a veneration of an individual or several individuals, but as a deep acknowledgement of the sacrifice made for all humanity. Now, the second dimension, Christ is not only a great spiritual being who entered matter to plant a thread of freedom within human life, but that is only part of the story. Christ is also a living light within us, a divine spark, the seed of a new consciousness already present in every human heart. In fact, it is sown in all that lives. And in this universe, everything lives, even what appears inanimate. Everything carries the divine breath. This spark is the imprint of Christ, the present of freedom placed within every being. We each carry this cristic seed. And as we move through life and begin to see the limits of an ego-centered existence, these seeds begin to awaken. It stirs our awareness and turns us into seekers of a deeper truth, a truer meaning of life. Now, the third aspect of the cristic force is a field of light. But what does that mean, you may ask? It can be understood as a vast living field that surrounds and permeates the whole earth. It arises from the spiritual heart of the planet, the intelligence of the Logos, and expands through all those who have gone beyond egocentric consciousness. Each person who transcends the limit of the self enters and contributes to this field. This is what is often called the universal brotherhood, not an idea, but a living reality formed across time by all who have crossed beyond the illusions of the lower self. Together, they have created a new field of consciousness and now work for those still within the boundaries of egocentric life, like we are. This beyond is not a place, but it's a state of consciousness, one that exists behind the limitation that divide and isolate us. From this field flowed the inspiration that stirred the human heart, the impulse to grow, to awaken, and to transform humanity. And yet, this must be clear. This field does not belong to the world of ego, imagination, or belief. It exists entirely beyond our projection. It's a reality of consciousness, pure, independent, and free. And when we look at all these layers I just mentioned, these are not separate. They are one reality seen at different depths. The Gnosis is a universal field of life calling on humanity. Is that extended hand from the divine to humanity. This field is not the same as where our thoughts, emotions, or reaction resides. Let us explore this further. What we call thoughts, feelings, and reactions are in fact forces, living energies. Thoughts are image we animate, desires are forces that move through us, and our reaction from patterns shaped in the unconscious. In today's hyper-connected world, this is easier to sense. We are constantly surrounded by images and stimuli, but this visible layer reflects a much deeper inner reality, and that has always existed. Spiritual traditions have long taught that our thoughts, desires, and reactions do not simply pass. They circulate within us. They rise into our awareness and sink back into unconscious, continuing their activities. It is as if we are immersed in a dynamic field of these forces. If we could perceive it, it would look like a shifting, colorful mosaic, constantly moving, yet repeating the same patterns, especially within ego-centered consciousness. And this is not only individual, it is collective. Nothing we think or feel disappears. These forces accumulate and interact within a shared human field, much like Jung described as a collective unconscious. Together, humanity generates a vast sphere, a living accumulation of all our thoughts, desires, and reactions. Imagine in this way, a dense, ever-moving cloud of human activity surrounding the Earth. Within it are all our beliefs, division, and projection. And from this arise the conflicts we see in the world today, as these accumulated forces continue to shape human behavior, often in ways that divide rather than unite. So as we've seen, a lot of our daily experience is shaped by this world of contradictions, our thoughts, our emotions, our reaction, and it feels real, but it often keeps us moving in circles, caught in opposites and division. So the real question becomes, how do we move beyond that? And this is where things start to get really interesting. I'm going to hand it over to Neto, who is going to take us deeper into this next step.
So thank you, Mary Rose. Let's try to explore a little bit more the nature of this, let's say, intermediate field, the field between humanity and, the cosmic Christ field, a field that we build individually and also collectively. So maybe the next slide will illustrate that a little bit. Yeah. That's an interesting image. I mean, that this is what Mary Rose was just describing, this hyper-connected life that we live today. Huh? And with stimuli coming from literally anywhere, everywhere, all the time, right? But this life that we live today is certainly a very powerful image, but the essence of those images that circulate around us, it's there since the dawn of times. The difference is that today the speed and the intensity of those images is much stronger than it was in the past. But the nature, the deeper nature of those images, it follows with the creation of human consciousness. We as human beings, even in, let's say, in the material field, in our daily lives, we are creators, and we may not be aware or totally aware of that. Actually, with the spark of our consciousness, that is actually a spark of the universal will that got individualized and separated from the all, and that's the essence of ego, right? It is almost like a shadow of the universal manifestation, but detached from it and unaware of it. But even in that state of lack of awareness, with that spark, we create all the time. We create thought images. We create desire forces. And we also create what we call in the school, like, etheric forms or geometry that are our habits and our reactions. And those creations of the human being, they emanate from us, they circulate around us in a cycle, from the unconscious, the deep unconscious, in our life sanctuary, the pelvic sanctuary. They rise to the subconscious level in our emotional life. We become normally aware of them when they circulate in our thinking aspect of our subtle world. But we create them, they emanate from us, but they also feed from us, from our living energies. That's why they are so connected to us, and we are connected to them. We are creators, and they are our creators, our beings, right? So they circulate without stop. And if we could see, as Mary Rose was referring earlier, if we could see those images, those forces, and those geometries, right? Those subtle geometries, it would be a very impressive picture. It would be something similar to what we are looking at. A very colorful, very intense, but also strange situation, because we could testify that we are actually not alone, not because we have our mirrors here all the time, feeding images, but because inside of our subtle world, this subtle world is populated by those images. And this phenomenon that happens individually, it gets stronger as it aggregates more and more on the collective aspect of life, and also for the entire humanity. If we move to the next slide, the image that we see individually, if we could zoom out of our planet, we would probably, if we could see the subtle spheres around it, it would be something similar to this image. The previous one, please. Stimuli circulating, and feeling the entire subtle spheres that exist, that are created by us and maintained by us around our planet, absolutely packed with thoughts and desires and reactions. In esoteric Christianity, especially in the Gnostic tradition, we have the teachings about the archons and the eons, that are, collective forces that end up dominating humanity. And some people may believe that those forces exist in a vacuum, and they are, extremely powerful beings outside of our control, and that dominate us. Yes, there is, we could see that sort of relationship, especially if we think in, let's say, more modern and contemporary terms, with all the algorithms and all the systems that control the information, and control the flow of data into our lives. But this is a much deeper and more profound aspect of human existence. Actually, it is the individuals, so the human beings with that reflection sphere, that personal reflection sphere, that sphere created by the reflections of our thoughts, our desires, our reactions, that when we aggregate those forces, let's say to a higher level, to a collective, we can think not only of that particular individual sphere, but especially in archons, that are, this Gnostic term that points to collective constructions that, as our creatures, as our own invention, ends up dominating us when they are continuously fed. And if we think in terms of the entire humanity, those thoughts, those desires, those reactions, they tend to aggregate in huge clusters. And sometimes we look at those forces, and it is really amazing to realize how they begin small, they grow over time, up to a point when they end up dominating their own creators. So this swarm of images of forces, of geometries, thoughts, desires, and reactions. They are really like a big intermediate barrier between humanity and the cosmic Christ field. If we compared the cosmic Christ to the sun and the light of the sun, all those creations from the individual level to the collective level to the global level, they act as a big and thick layer of clouds that totally block the access, from that field to humanity and vice versa. And it is such a strong field. And now maybe we can move to the next slide. It's such a strong field because it works in polarity. Today we all know that we lived in an artificially polarized world. When we say artificially, is because all those mechanisms in the virtual world, the algorithms and all the other aspects that form this virtual life, they push humanity to the limit. And when they push humanity to the limit, they are actually exacerbating our differences in opinion, in interpretation, in beliefs, in different ways to see life. But this reality of differences and positives and negatives, and what one may call divine and the other one may call anti-divine, or what is correct for one individual or a group of people may be totally incorrect to the other one. And even our beliefs and creations of our images of our own gods, all of that exists since the dawn of times, but now they are extremely exacerbated through all those mechanisms. And since they work in polarity as positives and negatives, it is almost like a big magnet, a big electromagnet system where we are attached to what we believe is correct, and we try to repel what we individually don't see as good or correct or appropriate. So friends, it is as if we were turning in this big electromagnet engine and absolutely attached to the walls of it, and looking at our fellow human beings as enemies or as opponents, when actually what is just taking place is a common phenomenon of polarity. So as we accelerate life, as we exacerbate all those mechanisms, we are truly moving to a limit of disruption, a limit of absolutely disaggregation, not only of individuals, but of the entire society. So all those that have accumulated enough experiences to realize the craziness, the true absurd of this egocentric approach to life, are realizing that something different needs to take place. And that's the invitation we would like to make to all of you from this point onwards. So maybe if we move to the next image. Yes, that one. It's a small detail in the very center. So, we changed the different sign to equal, because in reality, for all those that have come to that very limit of the egocentric life, and that have been touched by something different, by a different principle of life, they realize that these differences are actually the same process with a different face, with a different name, with a different aspect, with a different point of view. But in essence, it's the same um, prison, it's the same circuit where we are all immersed. So they realize that we need to go beyond that polarity. And what I call right and the other one call wrong, or vice versa, are actually not representations of the truth. They are just points of view. And above these points of view, above this swarm of images, above these desires and these reactions, there is a different reality. There is an overarching field. There is truly the field of light, life, and love that emanates from the cosmic Christ. And that's the step that we need to take. A true transformation, almost like a self-revolution, not an external revolution, because this would lead us nowhere, but actually an inner transformation that needs to take that positive and that negative and create a totally new approach to life. So the next image tries to illustrate that. So to go beyond that point. The next one, please. Yes. That's, we all know it's the symbol of infinity, right? But it is also the connection between the Greek letters of the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And we can also see the connection of positive and negative. So beyond the points of view, there is reality. A reality that is not fragmented, but a reality that is absolutely integrated. So that is the field of life. That is the reality that emanates to us directly from this Christ, a cosmic Christ field that encompasses the earth and encompasses all humanity in every one of us and each one of us. So if we go to the next image, that's truly a very inspiring image. It's the image of the pilgrim. It's also known as Flammarion, where it was published. But it illustrates the limit of our understanding, the limit of the egocentric consciousness, and what lies beyond that. So we see the image of this pilgrim that has reached the very limit of his or her path in life. So we see the duality. We see the moon and we see the sun. We see day and night, and high and low, and all the differences of this dual world created by our current state of consciousness. But there is almost like a membrane, almost like a limit that shows to us that there is a reality beyond that. That reality beyond us is shown on the left side of this drawing. It is also an indication to what we see as a description in the book of Ezekiel, when he talks about this divine overarching reality that he tries to describe as spheres within spheres and thrones and multifaceted beings. Actually, this is a description of reality beyond the three-dimensional egocentric consciousness that is attached to the membrane of time and perceives time as a line. So beyond that lies the Christic field, the field of the brotherhood of life, the field of all those that have liberated themselves so they can free their fellow human beings from their prison of their current state of consciousness. So this overarching reality is the true field of life. And this new reality exists, truly exists. It doesn't need to be created. It doesn't need to be imagined or truly discovered. We just need to eliminate the barrier that lies within us, this thick layer of clouds of thoughts and desires and reactions that circulate around us and that block the light of this true cosmic Christ Sun. So in the moment that we realize that we can truly go beyond that through the path of self-initiation, which is self-knowledge, that is to discover the barrier within us, to go through, gradually to go through that barrier and to establish a direct connection with that cosmic Christ field, but at the same time with the divine spark within us that, as Mary Rose explained at the very beginning, it's also a part of Christ. So it's not only this cosmic field, it is also the divine spark within us. So we establish this opening through self-knowledge. We create this connection. And through this connection, we start to actually transform our existence, gradually leaving behind the illusion of polarity, the illusion of duality, and creating this true unity within our being. So it's not a coincidence that we see this pilgrim going through this membrane with his head, with his right hand that represents his heart, and with the tip of his staff that represents his life sanctuary. So the three centers of his consciousness, of his soul, have been touched and liberated. So he's actually an inhabitant of two worlds. With the core of his consciousness, he's able to participate in the overarching reality of the cosmic Christ field, the field of the brotherhood of life, and in connection with his divine spark in his or her heart. And at the same time, this individual, this liberated human being, lives in our material reality. So he or she is able to become a living bridge between these two fields and is able to talk and touch and through his own actions connect his fellow human beings to this transcendent reality. Some images in the universal teaching, they point to this reality. So if we think, in the symbolic narrative of the gospel, when we see John the Baptist coming to the very border of the Jordan, and he sees coming from the other side, from the side of the living, from the east, he sees Jesus walking in his direction. So those are the two aspects, the twin aspects of the human consciousness. The consciousness of the seeker, the one that goes through the desert of life to come to the very border to discover a totally new reality, and this new reality comes in his direction as a mirrored image of his own consciousness. so that the two sides can be combined, can be united. We can also see that image, for example, in the Apocalypse, when John, the prophet, in the cave of Patmos, sees the other one, the liberated one, his own image in eternity manifesting itself in front of him. So that is actually a real path. It's not only a nice image or a nice symbol, but it is actually a path that is open in front of every human being, every seeker of the truth, that through his or her experiences in life has come to the very limit. Because when we come to this limit, we are touched by eternity. We are touched by this cosmic Christ field in the Christ seed, in the mustard seed, in the spirit spark atom, in the very core of our being. So maybe we can move to the next image. That is the image of that spirit spark that awakens in the very heart of our true being, our microcosm. And please let's move to the very last one. Yes. So that's the possibility that the spiritual school tries to point to each seeker, the possibility of through the touch and through the awakening in the spirit spark, in this Christic seed, in the very core of our being, that we may become aware of this new possibility in life. And through a path of self-initiation, we can actually build this bridge and to open up a passage in this field of projections that surround us, and we can create a connection between the true living universal reality, not only for or to ourselves, but for all humanity. Mary Rose, I think I need to apologize because I've spoken much more than I thought.
Not at all, not at all. All useful, all needed. Thank you so much, Neto.
But maybe we still have time for questions, huh?
Yes, and Regina will guide us through the questions.
Yes, so first a big thank you to both of you for this great presentation, and maybe for everyone on YouTube to kind of catch your breath or let it all sink in. We will start answering questions, but before I get into this session, I will just talk briefly about our website, especially a program that actually started just today. Neto mentioned during the presentation Gnostic Christianity. And Christianity and what we know from the scriptures, it's so often understood as something coming from the outside or historic or so on, but it actually describes the same inner path. And if you go to our website, just let me screen share it. We have a program just starting today, and it is about Easter, spiritual Easter. So go to our website, www.goldenrosicross.org, click on content, and there you see Spiritual Academy. And this takes you to the spiritual Easter. It's for 8 days. It explains the deeper meaning, what we or what the seeker is experiencing within, what we are all called to, or the path we are called to go. And it's the path the Golden Rosy Cross and so many other brotherhoods in the past have pointed out. Let me stop sharing here. So check it out. It might really help you all to start seeing things from a totally different angle. And also there is a great amount of different information on our website. So just keep browsing, because this is what we need, these inspirations and guidance in which way to go. And now let me go to the questions. Azur was asking, can we starve our negative creations to absolute death, or at best, can we make them extremely weak by not feeding them?
That I could start and maybe pass it on. Yeah, it's actually the goal, really. And so, as you mentioned yourself and you realize yourself, those are creatures that we create, right? And then we make them stronger and stronger by feeding them. Now, the most important thing in order to endeavor what you're trying to do, diminish them, is to be able to recognize them first. That's a big step. If you're able to recognize that you created this monster that is now, making you move as a puppet. So once you can recognize that, that's the first step. And now, as you recognize it, and then you're able to neutralize it in a way that you're able to dissociate from it, it will slowly shrink to the point where it doesn't even influence you anymore. I don't know if you have the examples. Sometimes you may feel like, oh, this certain situation always get me all upset. And these situations push my buttons, but all of a sudden it doesn't push your buttons anymore. So in a way, you have been able to neutralize it. You've been able to realize that this is something that I've created. I've created this monster that is now overrunning me, and I need to shrink it. And you succeed when you no longer feel manipulated by those feelings. Now, that benefit is not only for you, because as we mentioned before in the presentation, we're all creating those clouds that overrunning the whole of humanity. So by you being able to shrink that clouds that you have contributed, you took away from what the humanity is living through. So it is absolutely possible to shrink it. First thing is to recognize that it is there, and once you recognize it, then you're able to start taking control over it, and then minimizing it, and help humanity at the same time. So I'll pass it on to Neto or Weishi.
Maybe I'll go after Wuji this
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Okay. I wanted to add that just think about it as the way we breathe. If you breathe, you have the apparatus of your nostrils to breathe. Imagine you were in a different environment. You were in water. You require a different environment, a different tool to be able to breathe. So it's the same thought process in terms of the clouds that we have. If we are linked to those clouds, those thought clouds, if we use it as our mechanisms of breathing, if we are fed by those clouds, then you would only act like the way the clouds push you to. But if you have a different source, a different tool to breathe from, then you would breathe from that new light, from that cosmic Christ. And that requires a new mechanism of how you breathe, of how it influences your life, how it changes your subtle bodies, and all of that. So think about the tool you need for connectivity. Nito?
Yes, I would like to take that question and explore it from a slightly different angle. What needs to take place in us for us to realize that we are actually being manipulated by those forces? We call ourselves a spiritual school, and there is a reason for that. The reason is that without the spirit, there is literally no hope for us, because we live immersed in such a deep a dream, a sleepless dream, a dream without the possibility of waking up, such a deep sleep. And in this deep sleep, in this totally lack of self-awareness, we are absolutely um, taken in the illusion that we are our thoughts, that we are our desires and feelings, and that we are our reactions. And when we try to describe ourselves, we tend to use those mechanisms and those forces as an attempt to build our identity. So other than our name, the place of birth, and our background, professional background or education, we tend, when we run over with those kind of elements to try to describe who we are, we end up using our thoughts and the way we feel and the way we react to things. But the reality is, none of that is our real being. Those are veils around us. Those are layers that cover our real being, our consciousness. They are reflections on a mirror. But we live totally unaware that our consciousness is that super powerful mirror that can reflect the light of the sun. But it is towards the illusions of our pseudo identity, our egocentric identity. That's why we say that the human being needs to go through a lot of experiences, and sometimes very hard experiences, to come to this critical point of awakening, to reach that very limit of the egocentric consciousness. Because when we reach that limit, something different will touch us. Not a thought, not an emotion or a desire or a reaction. The typical forces that are created by us and that end up dominating us. So it is something outside of this closed, vicious circle of the egocentric consciousness. And that is the touch of the cosmic Christ field into the very heart of our soul, where the spirit spark, this divine spark, lies. In the moment that spirit spark is awakened, then it is almost like a thunder inside of our consciousness. We were in total darkness, and all of a sudden there is this instantaneous light that comes with an incredible power, incredible force within us, and shakes the entire consciousness and turns it upside down sometimes. So that moment is the awakening. It's the really awakening of a new possibility. And when a seeker comes to a spiritual school, what we try to do is to point to that force, to point to that disruptive force that manifests itself as, the lightning inside of our consciousness. We cannot control that. We cannot reproduce that. We cannot generate that lightning with our own egocentric mind or feelings or reactions. But we can recognize it. And the moment we recognize it, we can learn how to cooperate with it. And in the moment that we learn how to cooperate with it by paying attention to that moment, we can actually start to see our inner world, maybe for the first time. And after that moment, after we see our inner world as it really is, not through the veils of our illusion, but through the reality of the lightning of the spirit, it means that when you wake up from that dream, you cannot sleep again. You have to live from that awakening moment. And the path, the liberating path, is to learn how to cooperate with that force, the force or the power of the spirit when it manifests itself, so that we can start to change our consciousness through the self-knowledge that comes from that cooperation. Sorry if it took so long, but I think it's a very important question to address.
Yes. Maybe let's move to another question by Kenneth. What needs to be done to break free from the barriers that separates us from the cosmic Christ?
It sounds like a lot of what Neto has just spoke about
Yeah,
into that answer, but if you want to elaborate more.
maybe I think, and this also ties into, hang on, let me just scroll, another question. Maybe we can get more into the real hands-on day-to-day things, what we can do. And there was another question, and this ties into that by Saint Germania. He asked, so he said, it's ironic asking this on YouTube, but do you recommend fasting from electronic media as a remedy to overextension and exhaustion? And so I think both questions, they kind of tie together. And this is probably what many people are kind of wondering. If kind of they say, okay, I understood this and this and this, but what do I do now, here, today, in my daily life? Maybe we can elaborate on this a little bit and bring different angles.
Mhm. I've spoken too much recently. I'll go last.
Always appreciated, Neto. I'm not, I mean, not in going
I could start.
last. I mean, you're speaking.
That too.
Yeah, it's really kind of everybody's issue, how much is too much. And sometimes we don't even realize that we are in the too much area, right? Because it's such the social media and all the likes, technology is done in a way that you're completely kidnapped from yourself. So, it's like the main thing I would say is to always be able to realize that you're using the media, the technology, and all of that, and not being used by it. And so it is always that little voice within that tells you, hey, what are you doing? Because oftentimes you may just be taken in. I mean, I'm just speaking by experience. You're going in, of course, there's this scroll, but there's always that voice within you that's saying, hey, what's going on? And so it's a matter of being able to open up to it. And that voice is really that light within you, because it knows that what's offered out there can really kind of swallow you. And it's up to you to be open to that light and to understand that, okay, I won't be used by this, but I can use it because, nowadays people are using technology. It's there for many things, and it's okay to use it. But it becomes, it becomes an issue, and it's all encompassing and engulfing you, and then taking away from you that faculty that you have to be able to feel the presence of the divine within you. And so I would say, I mean, it's very difficult, and then everybody is griping with it, but always to know that there is a way to move away from it. And I'll stop here and have Weiji take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Marie-Rose. I wanted to just add that, the answer lies within us. And we actually intuitively know it. Even as we're asking the question, we also know it also the answer, in the sense that when we feel disconnected, disoriented in life, intuitively we know it. When we feel joyful, connected in painful moments, we also know that. We recognize that. And we also know moments in which we feel elated. We feel in a quiet place. We feel in a silent place. We feel that we are observing life from outside. And so the question is to ask ourselves, in what circumstances was created for me to be in that place? Was it just naturally getting there because of a painful situation? Did I get there when I was in a quiet moment, walking in a park somewhere, running, jogging by the side of the beach? In what circumstances was I when I felt strongly connected? And once we have an understanding of that, human nature kicks in. We tend to want to replicate those moments. It's just natural for us. And when we want to replicate those environments, if it was in a peaceful place, we tend to gravitate towards creating that type of a peaceful place. I would say for sure we don't want to create conflicts. If we got there because we were in a conflictual environment, we would not go seek for that. The human nature would just kick in. But the point I'm trying to say is that in getting first-hand connection with the cosmic Christ and to be in a place and environment where we are connected starts first with being aware of ourselves. And that's also why we have schools. Because in schools such as ours, in mystery schools, there are places, there are activities like the way we are right now, where it helps you to forget all the other things that are swirling around you, that are trying to get your attention at this second. And then you can focus. And if you can focus in this moment, sharing something together with all of us, at that moment, an opening happens. And that opening, you cannot guide it. That opening, you cannot will it. You cannot wish for it. It comes when it comes. But what you can do as an individual is put yourself in circumstances and an environment that could enable that. So that's what I could add to what Mariro said.
Regina, maybe before going to the next question, if I just could add, an observation to what Mary Rose and Wuji addressed in this question. Just a tiny example. Some countries are trying to regulate the content of social media, for example, for small children. And one of the things that they are very concerned about is the endless scrolling of images or videos, etc. Right? So let's take that very quote unquote harmful example, right? Imagine that you are going through those images or videos or messages or whatever that, on an endless flow actually represent the workings of your own unconscious, because that's how the algorithms see you. And they say that, with a few clicks, the algorithm will end up knowing you better than your wife, right? So, since it knows you so well, it's going to keep on feeding you with things or contents that you truly seem to like. And the more you like it, the more sleepy your mind is, and the more numb you become, and the more time you spend. And some people even say the more addicted you are to it. But let's imagine that all of a sudden, in the middle of that flow, you end up realizing that you are a prisoner. Is that harmful? Is that positive? If you try to stop that because you are a prisoner, actually you would be turning yourself from the painful perception of being a prisoner in that moment. So sometimes our ego is so well trained to be touched by this very disquieting force that is the manifestation of the spirit, that comes not to make us peaceful or enlightened or elevated. No, it comes to show us who we are in that moment. That we are a prisoner of our own self-built cell that can manifest itself as this kind of content or any other situation in our lives. So the spirit comes to awaken us. And if we try to avoid the pain of paying attention to that reality, we are actually trying to come back to sleep. So that's why when people ask us in the school, could you tell us what to do and not to do? We normally don't reply with suggestions on that level. What we say is the effort that your consciousness needs to go through is not to attach itself to some things or to try to avoid other things as a list of do's and not do's, right? But the true effort is to use the force of the spirit to truly learn how to cooperate with it when it comes as a disruptive, disquieting force to shake us and to show us how deeply asleep we are. So we cannot avoid the virtual world. We cannot turn off technology from our lives because we would be alienating ourselves. But we can consciously make an effort to use anything and everything for that very benefit, for the benefit of using it as a mirror to show us exactly what is taking place inside of us. It's just an example.
Great. Thank you. There's one more question. You already partially even answered it, so let me read it out. Does a division exist between desires harmful to the awakening of the spirit spark and desires neutral to such awakening?
I can just say a few things. I mean, all desires that are sparked by the world of polarity that we're in, they all, have an effect. None of them are pretty neutral, as long as they come from our state of being within the polarity that we live in, within the world we live in. So all desires, whether we decide that is harmful or not, because it's always like good and bad, harmful or not. What could be harmful for one is not harmful for the other. So because it's all on this horizontal level. So to me, I think both harmful or non-harmful, they all the face of a same coin. How do you say? The different side of the same coin, basically. So I will leave at that. Luigi?
Yes, it goes back to what Neto was talking about earlier, isn't it? And, you know, there are definitely things that would allow a human being to be more sucked into the cloud. And that would allow one to be very entertained by the cloud. And so, if you are that entertained, back to what Neto was asking, is it a bad thing or a good thing? And it really comes with your imprint, because, as Marie-Rose was just stating, that may be the path you need to awaken. And if that's the path you need for awaken and to continue sustaining, or to continue to be awakened, and to continue to listen to the voice that would guide you from inside. Because what does happen is, once you are awakened, once you are conscious and allow the spirit in you to guide you, then these other questions don't come. Because it is doing that already to you. It is already showing you the way. It is showing you the aspects of life to be able to to avoid, to stay connected. The aspects of life to be able to give room for abstract thought to settle, so that you can have time to be able to understand it. So it does all of that for you, and you don't have to be too concerned, let's say, worried, because you have to, where is that coming from, and what aspect of my being is contemplating that. Of course, going through a path requires that you take care of your body. Going through the path requires that you take care of aspects of your subtle body. And all of those are important. And therefore, with the spirit spark in us awakened, with that divine aspect in us gradually taking control of our lives, it guides you further. It opens the door and points the way. And mystery schools also, even when sometimes you are not fully aware, mystery schools also would give you some pointers to help you until you become aware, until it becomes part of you.
I was not planning to say anything more, but what you just said sparked a memory here of an image that I've heard from a very old pupil in the school, and I think it was so beautiful. And since we are talking about the cosmic Christ and this endless source of love that encompasses everything without judging, uh, you know, uh, uh, there's a tale that the Christ was walking on earth with his disciples around him, and that they passed by a dead animal that was really decomposing already. And the disciples looked at that and said, "Oh, this is this material world. It's awful. It has no real value in it. It's just the image of death and suffering and everything." And the story says that Christ looked at the animal and said, "It had beautiful teeth." So sometimes we need to go through very tough experiences so that this pearl of love and understanding can be taken from it as the quintessence of that experience. So we are not suggesting that suffering is the way, but sometimes the way needs some suffering. So we can come to the very limit of it, and through the veil of suffering, when it opens up, we can see what lies beyond it. So it was just an image that came to me when you talked about that. Sorry about that.
Okay.
That's a great story. Maybe let me talk just a little bit about the Golden Rosy Cross, or more about the website. After, maybe now you have listened to this talk and something spoke to you, some not, certain things really resonated. And this is different for everyone, how these teachings resonate. And there is also our website. There is so much material, as I already mentioned earlier. There are podcasts, there are courses, and books. There are a lot of free books available too. And all of this is tailored to help you to find these little connecting points that resonate with your inner being. And as I said, it's different for everyone. So, and there are different options to connect, but to connect to something else than just the virtual world. So what you can do is you can just browse the content we have, but you can also subscribe to the website. Then you would get email and notification when we have events going on. And there's also the option of becoming a member. And as a member, it's one step further for you to, it means it's a further step already on this path of making a connection with this cosmic Christ field, because this is what all carries us, this other reality. It is right here, just as we said, we are in our little prison. So as a member, you can then also participate in services, conferences. There are members meetings, and it's also always important to point out there are no strings attached, there are no obligations or anything. It's really membership. It's a way to orientate yourself to see what actually does resonate with you, or what does not really resonate with you yet, to kind of recognize more of this inner seeking within you. And just here, there's a screen share, so you go under connect, and there are all these different options. And I already mentioned earlier, and you can find the link in the chat box too. There is a program, Spiritual Easter. You can also find it under content, Spiritual Academy, where from day to day, it takes you on this inner journey of this discovering what Easter, this time of Easter, really means as an inner path. And speaking of which, because next week it's Easter Sunday, there will not be an online talk. We will be here again in 2 weeks from today, and on April the 12th. And then we will talk about the living body, discovering the force field of the spiritual school, which also it's the same. It's this cosmic Christ, this Christ field, but in its presence here, in a more concrete manifestation, so to speak. And on April the 19th, there is a third presentation in the same large framework of this light field. So the light garment of the soul, unveiling the subtle field of human life. So these three talks take the cosmic aspect of the Christ force. The next, in 2 weeks, it will be the aspect of the school, of this, how it can be found here in our life field. And then the third week, it's the individual level. And if you're subscribed to our website, also you will also get the notifications about the live stream. And with this, then let me see if there's anything else that we should talk. Oh, there's a last minute question. maybe we'll take this one, the last question, and we'll close after that. Melvin Blackman asks, with reference to the 12 fundamental vices spoken in the Egyptian Archgnosis number 4, ignorance is mentioned as the most important. What is the definition of ignorance?
Maybe I could take that one, if you allow me. Yeah.
Sure.
So Melvin, why 12? Huh? And why ignorance as a fundamental weakness versus true wisdom? We are not only this, superficial human being. We are part of a true divine universal archetype. And if you take the three centers of your consciousness and you try to correlate that with their interaction with the four elements of nature, you end up having 12 forces, 3 times 4. And this 3 times 4 construction is also a reflection of the 12 doors or 12 channels that we have around us in our subtle field that connect us to the subtle fields around us. Not only the material field, but the mental, astral, and etheric fields. So the 4 elements connected to the 3 centers of our consciousness, right? And in the moment that we feel those doors or portals or openings or connecting points with only the content of our egocentric consciousness or the fire of the lower self, or the shadows of our egocentric consciousness, our ego. What happens is that every single aspect of our connection, of this zodiac around us, that's where the zodiac comes from. So these all these connections, all these interactions, they are dominated by the shadows of that fire that is absolutely disconnected from the original source of life. We say shadows because it is as if we were walking on a desert and we had the sun behind us and we are pursuing the projections of our own illusions. So ignorance is the sum of all that manifestation. That's why in the school we talk about 2 zodiac systems. The lower zodiac, that is this nature's zodiac, that is the 3 times 4 forces in the egocentric realm that are, ignited and guided by this lower fire of this lower imprisoned consciousness, but also a higher set of 12 forces that are the result of a totally new, renewed consciousness. And it's not a coincidence that the symbol of the school represents that. We have the point in the center that alludes to the spirit spark, the circle around it that is our microcosmic system, and the interaction of the perfect triangle and square that is the new set of 3 centers of the consciousness that can truly renew the 4 elements of nature. And that's how you ignite a totally new set of zodiac forces, and you transform the old system into a totally new, transfigured one. It's one approach to that. I don't know if Regina, Mary Rose Wuji, if you'd like to add more to that.
No, I think we are way past the hour. So I think for today we will conclude, and we are looking forward to see you again in 2 weeks from today. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.